Hello friends, so my topic is operating system. So operating system is basically a system software that will manage hardware and software resources of the computer system. So suppose this is our OS, this is our application software, and this is user, and this is hardware. Okay, so now here first user will open any application software, suppose web browser. Here application software will request operating system for hardware resources and requesting for hardware resources. Operating system will interact with hardware. OS interact with hardware, and OS will provide all the required hardware for this application to run. Okay, so this is the complete flow how system works. So user will not directly interact with the OS. So user will open application software. Application software will request operating system for hardware resources. OS will interact with hardware and it will provide all the required resources for this application. Now there are some cases where user can interact with operating system using some UI. For example, shutdown button. So we have shutdown button. So by clicking on that button, user can directly instruct operating system to shut down the system. In this case, what OS will do, it will close all the application software which is running into the main memory and it will shut down the system. So this is the complete flow. Now I will tell the flow how operating system is loaded from hard disk to main memory. So this area is main memory. Okay. So when you operating system is generally stored into the hard disk. Okay. So we have one small chip called BIOS. So this is the small chip in our motherboard. This chip is either ROM or flash memory. So in older version of computer it used to be ROM. Nowadays it is flash memory. So in ROM is a read-only memory. So suppose we need to update any BIOS code. So in case of ROM, physical replacement of chip was required. But here we don't need to physically replace the chip. We can rewrite the BIOS code here. Rewriting is possible here. So nowadays we are using flash memory for this BIOS code. Okay. So this BIOS is the this is the first software which will run when you switch on your system. So what this will do? It will first check all the hardware resources whether they are correctly working or not. When you switch on the button, so it will check all the resources like CPU, RAM, like things are working fine. Then it will locate bootloader. So bootloader is a small program which will load. It will load OS from hard disk to main memory. Okay. So this complete process is called booting process. So after this booting process, we can say that operating system is loaded into the main memory. This area we can assume as a main memory. Now, after booting process, we can say that our system is ready to use for user. Okay, so this was the complete flow how operating system works when you switch on the system and when you shut down the system. Okay, so if you wish, you can note it down. Okay, so now I will discuss two major components of operating system. So first component is kernel and this is shell. So this kernel is a core component. Okay, core component. It's like a heart of the operating system. And this shell will provide UI. UI for kernel. Like by using shell, we can control the kernel of the operating system. So these are the two major components of the operating system. Okay. So there are other component of operating system also, which we'll discuss in our next video. So I'll tell example of operating system. So this core component, this will manage all the hardware resources, CPU, main memory of the system. So in detail, we'll discuss in next video. So example of operating system: Windows OS, Mac OS, and example of, if we see only example of kernel, so this is Linux. Linux is a kernel. Okay, so this Linux kernel, how they use, I'll explain. So we have operating system, Android operating system. Okay, Android OS. So what these guys have done internally, they are using a Linux kernel only. So this is Linux kernel. So on top of Linux kernel, they have used some other software as per their requirement, and they have this complete operating system, they have made it as an Android operating system. So anybody can use this Linux kernel, and as per their requirement they can add some more software and they can make their own operating system. So Linux kernel is basically open source. Open source means their source code is available and anybody can download the source code and they can make changes as per their requirement. Okay, so so this was the basic of operating system. This was the example of operating system, and component of operating system we'll discuss in detail in our next video. Okay, thank you.